Welcome back. Now, North Korea is a country that's barely out of the news ever. From all the eccentricities of the Kim regime to often wheeled out threats of nuclear annihilation, there always seems to be a unique fascination with the country. But it is one of the most repressive regimes on the planet. Millions of its citizens live in poverty and misery under a relentlessly repressive and invasive police state. One of the reasons, of course, that it does make headlines frequently is its nuclear program. Now, of course, Kim Jong-un met with Donald Trump after an exchange of fiery rhetoric back in 2017, but tensions have come and gone over the years. I'm joined today by Dr. Sojin Lim of the University of Central Lancaster to understand the ongoing tensions in North Korea. Sojin, how's it going?
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me for this talk today. Yes, as you said, we saw kind of the love letter moment between Kim Jong-un and Trump for about 2 years. Here we call it as a gesture politics. Then all of a sudden, with the realization from the Kim Jong-un's side, as I see, then the things became to normal or new normal with the COVID-19 situation. And during those 2 years, when Kim and Trump had a summits and had a handshake exchanges, then there was no such missile test. But right after, then Kim Jong-un began his missile test, but we didn't see any long-range missile tests, just only for short-range projectiles. But recently, Kim Jong-un began to work on the Yongbyon reactor facility as well, and also he tried different kinds of technology. For example, the one of the most recent missile tests was from the moving train. So he's just trying and showing the world that North Korea has the tactics and technology and capability to develop the nuclear program further. So that is the status quo. And that's how I see the old situation is coming back to normal.
What's sparked this recent change? Because, of course, last year, North Korea announced that freeze in nuclear testing was going to come to an end. And now the Pentagon is reporting and claiming that North Korea is actually testing an intercontinental ballistic missile that has the potential to reach the United States. What's led to that change of policy?
So from my point of view, there are two external factors. One is the reaction from Biden in the States. So the United States, Joe Biden's strategy is really different from Donald Trump's, and it's more like Obama's strategic patience. And as we saw, the U.S., the current government even abandoned, I would call it abandoned, the Afghanistan. And North Korea is not significant factor for its foreign policy. And the Korean Peninsula itself for the U.S. is kind of buffer zone between the trade war or this geopolitical war between China and the US. So that was why the North Korea has not been that much significant place in US foreign policy. But for Kim Jong-un's point of view, Kim Jong wants to keep the momentum. Kim Jong wants to be seen as an important part of the US foreign policy. So that's why Kim Jong tries to kind of increase the level of the seriousness of his nuclear program and test. And another factor I see is the recent presidential election in South Korea. So before and after now, Kim Jong-un didn't, before the election results, Kim Jong-un didn't know who would be the new president. But in order to give the message to the politicians that Kim Jong-un had to see and gauging the environment. And now it has been clear that the conservative president will be there, which will be more hostile environment for North Korea than the liberal or progressive political party president. So now Kim Jong-un knows that anyhow this, which will be different from the previous or the current outgoing president's time. So Kim Jong-un really now kind of building up and preparing for this coming new environment.
So President Moon Jae-in met with Kim Jong-un across the demilitarized zone. It was very widely broadcasted ahead of meeting with Donald Trump. How is that policy likely going to change? Because, of course, like you say, Yoon Suk-yeol is much more of a conservative, much more of a hardliner. What's the change in policy going to look like? Are we going to be seeing any meetings, or is it going to be more hostile now?
If we see the past, no president from the Conservative Party had a meeting with the leaders in North Korea, but it does not mean that Yoon Suk-yeol will not meet Kim Jong-un. If the situation or circumstances are met, then he will. But that circumstances, the conditions will be something North Korea probably not agree with, because Yoon Suk-yeol made it clear during his campaign, saying that North Korea is a threat, and he will increase the deterrence with the US in South Korea, bringing more THAADs, for example. And he also said that he will provide fund for the UN resolution for the human rights in North Korea. For example, President Moon Jae-in did not even talk about human rights issues about North Koreans or defectors, because he did not want to make Kim Jong-un upset in a way. But now Yoon Suk-yeol doesn't have a fear about that. So Yoon Suk-yeol made it clear that the denuclearization should come first. So if there is any talk about denuclearization, then maybe Yoon Suk-yeol will meet Kim Jong-un. Otherwise, no, I don't see any reason for Yoon Suk-yeol to meet Kim Jong-un.
Is there likely to be any sort of escalation in rhetoric then? Are we likely to see more of a continuation of the status quo? Or might the incoming administration in Seoul be more hawkish towards Pyongyang?
If we see the notion of a conservative party, in terms of the economic development, there can be more progress. For example, the Kaesong Industrial Complex, if you remember, it was created by the one of the previous Conservative Party presidents. So in that sense, there can be another step forward to have some kind of trade or financial cooperation. But in terms of the military security or the approach to peace, that will be very different from the current one in between with the upcoming one. And hostility or more like taking the both Korea sides as an enemy or as a friend, I can't tell, because it's really now clear that Kim Jong-un made it clear his notion now is the nuclear program is his survival strategy and more important than ever. And now he saw Gaddafi, he saw Saddam Hussein, and now he's looking at the Ukraine. And Ukraine giving up nuclear power, then easily invaded by Russia. That really gives North Korea a lot of pledge to come up with a more military power. And on top of that, recently these economic difficulties and also the another arduous march in North Korea and maximum sanctions, along with the COVID-19, that all these things all come together and they are made the environment really giving only one option for Kim Jong-un. So if we don't have any other alternatives. For example, my argument always is that at least we need to try something new rather than keeping the old rhetoric, because sanctions been there from 2006 and it's been already a long time. It has been really good message to tell North Korean regime that we are not happy with your regime, your nuclear power, but it hasn't changed any mindset there. So maybe it's time for us to try something alternative, then see how we can come up with. Otherwise, now we are kind of in a situation that nowhere to go. Kim Jong-un comes up with a nuclear program, and the surrounding countries like the US or South Korea, Japan now, then having more deterrence against it.
What might some alternative approaches look like?
I know that whenever I say this, many of the experts in the States especially think that you are kind of naive or innocent, but I strongly believe that the changes can come from bottom. For example, in North Korea, the marketization process happened from the bottom. And now the changes can from the bottom in society. In order to make it happening, we need to have more information influx in North Korea so that people in North Korea can know what is right, what is not, and then what they can do when they see what is not right. They kind of can perceive that the regime's doing at the moment is not good for them. But that's it. They don't know what to do. That's why we don't see Arab Springs in North Korea, even though they are suffering a lot. But if we keep providing information to people there, and then they will eventually realize that they can do something against the regime, then bring that to life. That can take time, but at the same time, that can bring real change because the regime will not change. And also the sanctions now prohibit this information coming into North Korea, because one of the ways to have information in North Korea is the human contact, human exchange by the aid workers, but it doesn't happen at all. So my argument all the time is that at least having partial sanction lift and provide more people coming into North Korea, bringing more exchanges there so that people can realize and do what to do. Because for example, in North Korea, they even don't have the term like human rights. The word human rights doesn't exist there and they don't know what that means. Then how come they go against the regime? They can show their grievance in a right way if they don't understand the term like human rights, which is very basic for us, right? So that is why I think the alternative way should be come from the sanction lift, start from the sanction lift.
From the point of view of the Biden administration, at what point might North Korea become a foreign policy priority again? Because of course, if we're thinking what legacy and foreign policy the Biden administration would leave, it would be Afghanistan, it might be Ukraine in due course. That's kind of absorbed the administration's focus so far. What would it take for North Korea to become top of the agenda again?
I really don't see how North Korea can become the top of the agenda for the US, because the current foreign policy of US, so-called Indo-Pacific policy, right? In the UK, we call it Indo-Pacific tilt. And in the in the US, they call it Indo-Pacific policy. They are mostly focused on China. And for North Korea, there's no way to beat China, and China is something there. We have Taiwan there, Hong Kong issue, and the China Sea, the South China Sea, the Taiwan Strait. All these issues are there because of China. And now even for Ukraine and Russia, now U.S. government is seeing the Chinese officers to talk about not to help Russia. And as I heard, the result will come out soon about the discussion. Like that, China's existence is so big here. And for this little tiny fragile state like North Korea, it has its regime, but its government functions is not like the normal way of functioning. So that's why the country itself is not significant. So that is why North Korea is just struggling. And if it goes extreme like a Putin, then the only way for North Korea will be, really having the real nuclear test. But that again, it will just isolate the country more and more. So for North Korea, the only way is it will be to have attention will be open its market, open its country, and bring more diplomatic relations, and having normalized way. Then US can have a look, which I don't think Kim Jong Un would be willing to do.
Yes, I would, of course, if North Korea were to liberalize, were to open its border, what sort of problems might that create for the Kim regime?
So as I said, the most significant fear for Kim's regime is information. The cultural influx nowadays, a lot of the Korean dramas coming into North Korea with the smuggling, then people easily observe. It's not just digest or understand, it's just observing because the language is the same and they know the South Korea is how well developed now, and they even try to follow the hairstyles, how to dress up, and even the way how they speak. That is really quick, and that is one way to change people's mind. And for North Korea, by opening up the border and opening up this market, then there will be more smuggling, there will be more people, there will be more human exchange, there will be more not only information but cultural influx there. And especially this young generation nowadays, they are the ones who had a less ideological education. For example, after the 1990s, when the government could not provide rations anymore, then these kids had to go out, try to find the food. So they couldn't be in the classrooms. So they are the ones who has a less ideological education. For them, the regime is not important, How to survive daily life is more important. And that's why they have less ideological brainwashed system now. And for them, money could be more important than the ideology. So for those kind of people, this outside information can be a trigger point to change the behavior. So for North Korean regime, that will be one of the most significant threats for the regime itself, rather than providing kind of denuclearized threats and stuff. So that's why North Korea can't open its border easily.
There've been reports out of North Korea concerning North Korea recently that it suffered terribly with economic problems more recently. North Korea has claimed for a long time that it's managed to contain COVID. A lot of experts have cast that into doubt. What problems is the Kim regime facing right now? How serious a problem is it facing?
To be honest, no one knows what exactly going on inside of North Korea, because now all these diplomats had to leave the country. We don't have any aid workers there. So basically, not only there are people being cut from outside the information, but we have no access to North Korea. So we don't know what is exactly going on, and we just rely on the newspapers from North Korea or their TV, the news from North Korea. Just in a way, looking at this and that from different kinds of the information, it looks like North Korea, at least in Pyongyang, they secured a kind of vaccination from, who knows, from China or Russia. And also it looks like they are doing certain the COVID test, but they can't guarantee that they can do the test for entire population. They can't provide the vaccination for entire population. And on top of that, people are starving and their health condition is really, really bad. So they can really easily get COVID and become serious. So that is one situation which we can speculate and reasonably think. But apart from it, it's really nobody really holds the exact information about North Korea or is going on inside in terms of the COVID-19.
Sojin, thanks very much for joining us.
No worries. Thank you.